The rain in the city didn't just fall, it orchestrated a rhythmic tapping against the oversized glass panes of the Golden Grain, a restaurant that felt less like a business and more like a sanctuary for the weary and the nostalgic. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of braised beef, aged wine, and the faint, sweet trail of vanilla bean. In a secluded corner booth, draped in shadows and bathed in the soft glow of an amber lamp, sat Eleanor. She was a woman who seemed to exist in a different tempo than the rest of the bustling world. While the city outside moved in a blur of neon and haste, Eleanor sat with a stillness that commanded a subtle, unspoken respect. Her hair was a striking cloud of spun silver, held in place by an antique tortoiseshell comb that shimmered whenever she tilted her head toward the window. The silent reservation. Eleanor did not look at the menu. She didn't need to. She had been coming to this exact booth every Tuesday evening for 42 years. The staff had changed, the upholstery had been replaced, and the prices had certainly climbed, but the ritual remained sacred. The waiter, a young man named Marcus who had learned the rhythm of this specific table during his first week, approached without a word. He didn't offer the specials or ask about her day. He simply performed the opening act of a play they both knew by heart. The placement. He set down a glass of deep garnet-colored Cabernet. The linens. He adjusted the white tablecloth, ensuring it was crisp and perfectly centered. The bread. A small basket of warm, crusty sourdough was placed to the left, exactly 3 inches from the edge of the table. Eleanor offered a tiny regal nod. Her hands, delicate and mapped with the fine blue lines of age, rested calmly on the linen. On her left ring finger sat a heavy gold band, worn smooth by decades of presence. The main course of memory. When the coq au vin arrived, the aroma filled the small alcove. It was rich and earthy, the steam carrying notes of pearl onions and thyme that seemed to bridge the gap between the present and the past. Eleanor didn't pick up her fork immediately. She allowed the sensory experience to wash over her first. Her sharp blue eyes weren't focused on the steam or the beautifully plated poultry. Instead, they were fixed on the empty chair across from her. To anyone else, it was a vacant space of dark wood and velvet. To Eleanor, it was occupied by the ghost of a laugh, the memory of a crooked tie, and the phantom sensation of a hand reaching across the table to cover hers. Every few minutes, a soft, knowing smile would play across her lips. She would tilt her head slightly, as if leaning in to catch a whispered confidence. It wasn't the look of a woman lost in grief. It was the look of a woman engaged in a very long, very beautiful conversation that simply happened to be silent to the rest of the room. The art of the meal. She ate with a precision that was almost poetic. Each bite was a deliberate act of remembrance. She noticed the way the wine sauce coated the back of the spoon, the exact tenderness of the mushrooms, details she would discuss with the empty chair later. As the restaurant filled with the theater-going crowd and the clink of silverware grew louder, Eleanor remained in her quiet bubble. She was a fixed point in a turning world. She watched the rain streak down the glass, the headlights of passing cars turning the droplets into diamonds. The observation. She noticed a young couple 3 tables over, arguing over their phones. She felt a pang of pity for them. They were there in body, but they weren't present. The contrast. Eleanor was alone, yet she was perhaps the most present person in the building. She was honoring a life, a love, and a tradition with every breath. The departure. When the meal was finished, Eleanor performed the final movements of her ritual. She took her napkin, folded it into a neat rectangle, and placed it precisely to the left of her empty plate. She stood with a slow, practiced grace. Marcus appeared instantly, holding her wool coat. He draped it over her shoulders like a royal mantle. Eleanor reached into her small beaded purse and produced a crisp bill. She laid it on the table, an amount that far exceeded the cost of the meal and the wine. It wasn't just a tip. It was rent for the sanctuary of the last hour. She walked toward the heavy oak doors, her gait steady despite the weight of her years. She didn't look back at the empty booth. She didn't need to check if he was still there. She carried the conversation out into the rain with her, tucked safely under her coat, ready to be resumed the following Tuesday. As the door clicked shut behind her, The amber light of the golden grain seemed just a little dimmer, the air a little less warm, as if the room itself was exhaling after the departure of its most dignified guest.